What is up, everyone? Welcome back to this brand new episode of Hockeytown Rundown. You're here with us, your beautiful hosts once again, Carlo and Zach, with two beautiful guests from Hockeytown West Podcast. It's Travis and Nick. Brandon, unfortunately, is not here. I'm sure he's snoozing, right, boys? I'm not sure what he's doing, but welcome back. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us. I thought we were just going to AI Brandon in just so the viewers didn't know. So I thought you guys were working on that for us.
Hey, now that this platform Riverside has that really cool animation thing, I don't know, maybe we could plug him in as like a panda or something. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are.
It's so good.
That would probably be perfect.
Travis?
Not much, man. Just we're still playing hockey down here, so it's just crazy right now. But thanks for having us on.
Yeah, your Walleye are killing it right now. We'll touch on them as well as some Grand Rapids, Detroit Red Wings, and then obviously what's going on in the world. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Actually, before we do, I'll give you guys a second. Plug yourselves in. Where can the fans, folks, Red Wings fans, Griffins fans, Toledo fans alike find you guys online?
Yeah, so if you haven't heard us on one of these episodes before, we are Hockeytown West Pod. You can find us on Twitter. We're on Blue Sky. We're on YouTube. We're Instagram. I think we're on Threads too. I mean, we're just about anywhere you can find us. Hockeytown West Pod, covering the Griffins. This is we're going on year 3 next year. And this last year was a very different experience for both Travis, Brandon, and myself as being media credentialed. So being in the locker room, being able to ask the questions post game. You can find us on TikTok, a lot of those post game questions and the interviews with the guys. And last Sunday, we just wrapped up exit interviews with the guys too. So those have been slowly coming out. We're just stretching content.
Yeah.
So, with those. Yeah. So with the offseason, started a little bit faster than we expected. So that's where you can find us. And then my handle is GR Hockey Guy. Travis, what's your
Trav in T-Town.
So covering Griffins and covering Walleye. And Travis is our Walleye guy. So he's boots on the ground and able to be, media credentialed with us as well and go behind the scenes a little bit.
Nice.
Big ups.
Big ups. And so before we jump into everything as well, we want to stop and say thank you for joining us once again on this brand new episode. If you haven't already, if you are catching this on YouTube, watching or listening, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and then hit that notification bell that lets you know when these brand new episodes come out, as well as our short videos, which we're trying to put as much content out there. We know that we missed last week due to unfortunate circumstances. Carlo also had a baptism, but we're back, we're well, we're alive, we're thriving, right? And so if you are listening to this on Spotify or watching, because you can do both, why don't you go ahead and rate us the 5 stars, hit that follow button. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Do the same thing over there. And we're on pretty much all social medias, right? We believe we're on Threads too. We do post on there, but we're not very interactive.
I was just going to say, I feel like everybody on a podcast is I think we're on Threads too. Like poor Threads. Like they rattle off all the socials and I think we're on Threads too. It's hilarious every time.
I know for a fact we're definitely not on Blue Sky. Maybe one of these days, maybe some other platforms too. We're still in the works on those. Carlo's kicking butts over on the TikTok. And once again, we're really trying to provide more content for you guys. We believe it's great content. It lets us know what you believe and the content that we're putting out there. We love hearing the feedback from you guys and want to get some ideas on what we could do, especially as we inch more into this offseason, right? As Nick mentioned, stretching for content, so to say, right? So we started finally putting out those Darren McCarty shorts from that very long, unedited, raw, uncut episode. So go ahead and check those out if you have not already. And so let's go ahead and jump into everything. And I think we should start off on a good note. And I think, Travis, this would be a good spot for you to kind of just go into the Toledo Walleye. We'll then go into Grand Rapids, then the Detroit Red Wings, and then Wishlist, and then obviously the world. So Travis, why don't you go ahead and kick it off with the Toledo Walleye and how they're playing in their playoff series right now?
Yeah, they're off to a good start in the Western Conference Finals. They went out to Kansas City and won Game 1 and Game 2. Game 2 was last night. A little bit more of a back and forth game compared to Game 1. It was a 2-0 win in Game 1, and last night was 4-3. So it's been a great start. We didn't know what to expect. I mean, we played them last year and we fell behind early at home. And you could tell this year there's a lot more emphasis of just getting a lead early and just kind of building on it. So it just kind of was one of those things where they've got off to a great start. And I mean, their path here, they swept Indy and then they took Fort Wayne to 6 and beat them. So just another solid start to the fun season down here. I mean, this is our fifth straight year in the conference finals. So it's just been a crazy run down here. And it seems like every year in late May, they're still playing.
Gotta love that. Who's standing out to you the most, Trav? Like on the team during these playoffs, who's been kind of your standout, or has it just been a good up and down the lineup depth contribution going on?
Anyone that the Red Wings should be aware of, or Grand Rapids that should be on the lookout for, so to say.
There we go.
Guy that was with the Griffins for some time with Trenton Bliss, he's having a really good playoffs. You know, it's interesting that he hasn't gotten an AHL deal yet. He chose to stay here and stay on an ECHL deal, and he's probably the main guy. I mean, Matt Anderson started on an American League deal this year. He scored the game-winning goal in Game 1. He was actually under a Marley's contract, but I mean, and Bednar had a shutout in Game 1 in the West Final, so he could be a guy to keep an eye on. And Guylander, he played pretty well last night also. We don't have a lot of Griffin contracts this year. It's pretty much, I mean, you got Andrews, Bednar, Guylander. So, I mean, in Bannell, Carson Bannell's he's been pretty noticeable, mainly along the boards, just with what he's done all year, though. And his physical side of the game, his puck possession is really good. Just along the boards, he's so good. And he's starting to throw hits at a much more like physical level than he did at the beginning of the year. So I think he's just gained confidence. And I think that stint with the Griffins really helped him.
I was gonna say too is like we had former Griffin Tyler Spezia who signed with the Toledo Walleyes, so he's down there, and then you've also got, I mean, the big thing out of that Travis saying is Carter Guylander, Jan Bednar. So these guys are going to be coming up hopefully next year to the Griffins to help us, and then Carson Bantle. I mean, this is a guy that should be on some of our radars here. Is this guy is a human wrecking ball down there? I mean, just throwing the body, led the regular season, had a lot of goals in the regular season. And we relied on him up here in Grand Rapids for quite a bit when they took Elmer up from us, and then we were dealing with some shortage on the forward side. So this is a guy that for the Griffins, you know, to keep an eye on, and maybe a fourth line. I don't know if he can get to the NHL, but I mean that's a fourth line guy that is pretty physical and just so good on the boards. And
he's a big boy too, right?
Yeah, he is. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3".
I think he's 6'4".
6'4",
6'4", over 200 pounds. So, I mean, he's no small guy.
No doubt. Awesome. Some promising things. Well, obviously we're rocking with the Walleye and trying to keep up with them as much as we can, but we know that's more or less your domain, Trav. So we appreciate you popping on to give us a bit of a lowdown on what's going on in Toledo land with the Walleye. And yeah, man, wishing them the best of luck and going to get that cup.
Yeah, I hope eventually, like, the other two teams can get to the point that we're at, where it's like every year you're in May and you're still playing, because it's almost like you get to the playoffs and it seems like every year it's like, okay, they just breeze through the first two rounds and then it's like the fun really begins. And I know with the Griffins at the beginning of the year, it looked like that was going to be possible, and then it started to tail off and it went quick for them in the playoffs. But hopefully at some point we can get all three organizations making deep runs. That'd be a chaotic time if that happens.
Yeah, hopefully that's this upcoming season, right? I mean, based on the press conferences that Steve Yzerman and Tom McClellan said, it sounded like that is very much, and not to say that these previous couple of years that hasn't been the goal that they want to make the playoffs, but it seems like now that is the main focus, is to not only make the playoffs, but in hopes that they can make it past the first round upcoming, right? Or at least hopefully for this upcoming next season. I really hope that's the goal. Please, Steve Yzerman, make it happen. Tom McClellan, please. So let's transition over to the Grand Rapids Griffins real quick. And yeah, very short-lived, right? I mean, even compared to last season, I don't want to call it a disappointment, but it's definitely a letdown to me personally. But some of these players, they definitely weren't. I mean, I think Michael Brandsegg-Nygård, he came out and showed that he could be somewhat of a playoff guy, right? 3 points in the 3 games played, 2 goals, 1 assist. 4 penalty minutes. Dominic Shine showed up. Okay, that's an older guy. Sheldon Dries, 2 points. Okay. Amadeus Lombardi, a goal and assist. Very nice. Nate Danielson even coming out there and showing out his center potential and what he could provide potentially for the Red Wings in the future as well. Anton Johansson, I thought that he was a really, surprising player in this playoffs, but obviously you guys are more the Grand Rapids people. You guys got to watch them all season long. You guys got to watch them more in the playoffs probably than what we did. So go ahead and take it away on what you guys saw, what you liked, and what you didn't like about the series against the Texas team.
Texas was a good team. Texas is a very good team. I mean, a lot of people have picked them to win the Calder Cup finals or to be in the final matchup. So it was a tough matchup the first round with us. There was a play-in round. So I don't know if you want to count that as the first round or, you know, we're in the second round, wherever you guys decide to put us. But the expectations, they were high. I mean, we had Nygård coming in. We had ASP coming in. We ended up getting Emmett Finney at the end of the season there as well. And I think the biggest thing is like we made it as far as we did last year. Same result. I think we just needed more time with these guys to gain chemistry, honestly. I mean, when you're throwing, and every team's going to deal with this throughout the season, is chemistry issues of adding guys late in the junior year, at the end of the junior year, or at the end of the college year, or then at the end of the Swedish league as well. So more time with these guys. And then you had a lot of guys dropping from Detroit. You know, you had Domshine, you had Watson, you had Elmer, you had, we didn't get Marco back. There was a couple other guys that we were to hope to have gotten back as well. Lagesson is another guy. So dealing with a lot of the chemistry issues and guys coming in and out, but all the other teams have to deal with it as well. So we were hoping for a better result, right? Getting swept is never fun, especially in a, you know, best of 5 series. So just, I think with the Swedish guys at ASP, NBN, they just really needed more time with this team to get comfortable with the smaller ice, and then also to get comfortable with the lines that they were on. So I think that was really where we struggled. And then you have got guys coming back from injury as well and things like that. So it was just a hodgepodge of guys. Go out there, figure it out, and try to get as far as you can. And it's not always a recipe for success down here. But I thought, like NBN, I thought as he got going, as he got comfortable, as he got playing, his play really stood out. I mean, his shot, he was releasing the shot that he's known for. He was putting up points. He came from playoff hockey in the SHL over to the AHL for playoff hockey right away. I mean, he got 2 games in for the regular season, but that didn't really, different type of play, right? Different type of atmosphere. And so coming in, I thought he played really well right away. And then ASP, when he got here for his first regular season game, he seemed to catch on really quick, played really well, and then kind of adjusted to the team as he got going. You know, like he came out and played his game and then kind of integrated in with the rest of the team. So those would be like the top 2 that, you know, you're touching on, of guys coming in that you guys are going to probably be hoping to make it out of camp.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll be honest with you, I was kind of on the, and this is probably wrong, but I was on the train of thought of, you know, ASP and MBN coming in and kind of being the saviors that were really going to elevate the Griffins. And I'm sure those expectations were shared amongst many, but you laid it out brilliantly in that it's not always that easy. Like, you got 2 guys coming over that are accustomed to playing a certain way on a certain surface. You know, they come here and there's just a ton of adjustments being thrown at them. Why? Well, hey, they're human beings. And sometimes it's just, you got to kind of level set those expectations and temper them down a little bit. But nonetheless, it's good to see that they acclimated. Obviously, we wanted them to go a lot further than they did, but to see the signs of acclimation was good. You know, you got to take some good out of it. Anything you would have done differently, like if you were in a position of, you know, different looks or anything like that, or do you think they were kind of lined up and put out in the best format to go and win?
Trav, you want to take this one first? Because you are the lineup guy for us. Like, you're always finding matchups, putting people in the right spots. So I'll let you start here.
I mean, I think they did the right thing with, like, MBN, bringing him in, put him in like a 3rd line role, bottom 6 role initially to start. And I think he's going to just continue to develop in that role and then begin to work his way up wherever he starts. And I think roster wise, there's only so many tweaks you can do. Like, you bring in all these guys and they have to play. Like, Alex Doucette basically sat the whole playoffs, and but when you get a 1st round pick coming in, you're going to force guys out. Like, that's just what it is. Those guys are going to play. They were picked in the 1st round for a reason. Like, they deserve, they're going to get their looks. So
was Deuce the one to sit, in your opinion? I love Doucette. So I was kind of whoa. I mean, that one.
There were guys that were hurt too. Like, Johannes was hurt. that's a big body on the fourth line that, maybe changes a game with a hit or something like that. But I just think roster-wise, like, there's only so much you can do. And when you get all this help coming in, you're going to play those guys. Like, we seen it last year when Nate came in from WHL. Like, they put him right into the lineup, but they did take him out. And I think the big thing is just, like, you want to get these high prospects the minutes early. It gets their feet wet for next year. And I didn't hate the lineups. Yeah, there's always something you could critique, but that's going to be a thing you can do at any time. I wouldn't say it was bad deployment, but it's just, I mean, really from Christmas on, they lacked an identity. That's really what it was.
Feel your pain there, dude. Sheesh.
Yeah, I would agree with what Travis is saying. I just, like, even Cross Hannes wasn't able to make it into the lineup, and he was pretty lethal against Texas, his hometown team. So he wasn't able to crack the lineup. You weren't able to get Carter Mazur was cleared the last game of the season.
Yeah, I saw
for the playoffs. So I mean, it was like, you win one, and then you have him back, and then you're trying to figure out, like, who do you put in here? So it's definitely not a spot where I envy coach of having to put people in certain spots. I mean, I think it was more regular season. You're like, what are we doing here at the end of just throwing guys out there in different deployments and different matchups? I think the only thing that could have changed maybe was Kinshoff, a guy we traded for. He was a defenseman, probably not sticking around, but I would have rather seen him on the defense paired. I think we were running with like 8 to 10 defensemen throughout the year. So he's just a better, like, style wise against Texas. But then you're like, who do you sit? Do you sit ASP? Do you sit Tuo, Vollander? Do you sit Anton Johansson? Like, it was just so tough at that point. So, I mean, it's just splitting hairs of, who you have in there, especially with the draft picks and the young kids that are coming in. You want to get them time. You want to get them development. You want to get them playoff hockey. But you also got to balance too of, like, we got to win some games.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's touch on Sebastian Cossa. This is someone that's been talked about, especially with everyone knows Trey Augustine. Maybe we can touch on Rudy here as we go deeper into this episode, because the Red Wings have some pretty good goaltenders up and coming, right? And so you look at Sebastian Cossa, I mean, just even looking at last year's numbers, right? So not this season, but the previous season, in 40 games, a .241 and a .913 save percentage, 22, 9, and 9. In his 9 playoff games, a .272, 900 save percentage. This season, 41 games played, a .245, and then a .911. So a bit step down, but to your guys' points, I mean, Nick, I think we talked about this off air one day, so I'm not sure if you actually mentioned it here, but just to reiterate it as best as I can, that at the beginning of the season for the Grand Rapids Griffins, they were one of the top teams. And then once you kind of hit that December mark, going into January, that's where they kind of developed into like more of a 500 team, and they somehow stayed within a playoff spot, right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but at least to correlate that to these numbers for goaltending with Cossa, I mean, that's kind of expected with that, right? But going into the playoffs, in the 2 games that he started, a .451 and an .868. I'm not going to put the blame on him, because even someone like Steve Yzerman says the save percentage is not reflected just on the goalies, but also the team as a whole. But touch on Cossa. If anyone has any worries, do you guys have any? Just briefly touch on this real quick.
Yeah, I'm not. And Travis could correct me when I'm finished, because he's been able to watch him a lot more than I have, being down in Toledo to start. But I'm not worried about Sebastian Cossa. I'm not worried about him at all. I think he had a rough first game out with Texas. It doesn't help too. We had like a week off in between, so you kind of throw off the full rhythm as well on that end. But Texas had to deal with it as well, so I'm not making excuses, just things to point. Everybody's stressing out about Cossa in the regular season, that he looked off, he looked bad. Like, he's got almost the exact same numbers as the year prior, and there's nothing to worry there. I've looked at Wallstat's numbers. He was drafted the same class as Cossa. His dipped in year 2. You usually see a sophomore slump, right? I don't think there's anything to be concerned about with Cossa on this. He's right on pace with Askarov. Askarov's now year 3 into the AHL, hopefully breaking up into, the San Jose team for next year. And maybe this is, we're hoping to see Cossa. Cossa's probably going to be here again next year based off the contract situation in Detroit, and then being pulled up for injuries. So I think and the other thing too, to make note of his stats, is he's got 1 professional, like, NHL win under his belt too. I think that I would take that more than one win over the AHL because he's got the experience. And that game, if we remember, it was kind of a sloppy game
Yeah,
for Detroit
it was
too.
wild.
So I'm not concerned. I think we continue to see the increase of his numbers continually getting better. This was a weird year for Grand Rapids for goalies as well, of having 3 rotations, because you got to remember we had Ville Husso at one point too
Mhm.
with Jack Campbell, and so it wasn't a true 1-to-1 like a starter backup role. They were rotating through these guys, so I think that may have affected a little bit. And then the last thing too is we gave up a lot more shots this year. So he was facing a heavier workload when he was in the games. So
That's a good point. Giving up those shots is big. And what do you think changed year over year to get into a position of giving up that many more shots with GR? Like, is it a systems thing or is it just a personnel thing with new guys coming in and learning?
a little bit of both. We had a lot more younger players. We lost a lot of veterans in the offseason that we didn't re-sign, like Taro Hirose, Austin Sarnik, who played games with Detroit last year as well.
Sarnik's sick. I like that guy.
He was one of my favorites out here. Joel Lesbrot's another veteran that we lost. And so like then you replace him with Andre Becker, draft pick, Nate Danielson, draft pick. You're not supplementing with veterans. I mean, we did add Joe Snively and Sheldon Trice, who are veterans, but it didn't really account for what we had lost and veterans aspect too. Like, and we lost Marco to Detroit. We lost Elmer to Detroit. We lost there's one other guy I'm thinking of that I just lost. Eljo, Marco. I said Marco, right? So I mean, it's you lose a couple guys up, and so like that's going to affect it. And then the other aspect. What was the other thing you said? Was it experience or systems? Systems wise, it was more of like we just couldn't get out of the neutral zone. We couldn't get set up in the offensive zone at all. So it created a little bit more pressure on our defense, and we have a younger defense,
Now let's transition over into you mentioned and you brought up some of the names that transitioned over to the Detroit Red Wings team this season, right? So you got players like Simon Edvinsson fully fixtured on that team, right? Marco Kasper essentially fully fixtured on that team, missed 1 game with the team, right? Albert Johansson, Elmer Soderblom. So let's talk about Elmer Soderblom real quick, because that's someone we saw him come up on the team last year, couldn't really figure it out. So that's why they had him go back to Grand Rapids, kind of picked it up a little bit, learning from Watson how to play that body, be a little bit more physical, and learned how to use that reach a little bit more. He goes back to Grand Rapids to play in the playoffs. Touch on that real quick. And I kind of want to correlate that to the systems, kind of like how you guys just brought up. Is that something that we should be aware about, that now that we have Tom McClellan, Dan Watson being the coach there, the systems seem to be very different. So does that mean anything to you guys in that regard? Not really trying to pick on Dan Watson. I have my own 2 cents on that. We can touch on that, but touch on that real quick. See if there's a correlation there.
I think there was a little bit of a correlation there, because as soon as Lalonde got fired or released right after Christmas, and that's kind of when things changed. Todd was picking the Griffins apart player-wise. Like, that's when you started seeing more call-ups. You saw the younger guys going up. You saw more of the younger guys in the lineup, like Eljo. He started the season up there, but he didn't really get playing time in the beginning of the season. And then as soon as Todd gets there, he's more in the lineup regularly. You see Marco getting a huge jump in there as well. And then you start seeing Dom Shine get pulled up, Austin Watson get pulled up. You start seeing Elmer get pulled up. And so Lagesson never came back on our end. So didn't play much while he was up there, which we didn't understand why. But it was just one of those things of like, as soon as Todd got there, which we love, the fact that like the younger guys are getting the time up there. They're getting the time, they're getting the development. Todd's really trusting these guys because he knows that this is the future for the Wings. Are these players here? This is the core. So you got to integrate them in. You got to let them learn, and it's okay if they lose. It's okay if they fail, right? You got to be there for them. Once that happened, though, it's like there was what, 2-3 weeks where the Griffins had no forwards, where we were going 11-7 because we didn't have anybody else. We couldn't call anybody else. And so between that, and I know Dan had spoke and during his exit interview process for the regular season or for the playoffs, is that he's going to be getting more in sync with Todd. He's going to figure out the systems, what Todd wants to see down in GR, what is his play style, and really connect with Todd. He already had that relationship with Derek from a long time ago. I mean, even from the Toledo days. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that changes, how that incorporates down here. I think some things did get taken away because the season really kind of went for a turn right around the time Todd joined Detroit. So it was like kind of a pull and tug. So who knows where, how much of it affected, what systems, what integrated in. For me, it's tough to say on that end.
What about you, Travis?
I mean, there was definitely, anybody can see it that there was a fall off, and it just coincidentally happened at the same time. But when you're getting guys called up constantly, that's going to happen. And I've said it a bunch, like the Griffins didn't help themselves enough. Like they needed more AHL contracted players, not rely on your parent club to help you out. Like if you look at the best comparison that I can give you is like with Hershey and South Carolina in the ECHL and the AHL. At one point, the Stingrays had like 13 AHL, NHL contracted players on their team. And top to bottom, they were in the top of the league in each league. So like for us, if you take that, for example, the Griffins, when they had to dress 11 and 7, they had nobody. And like everybody that was contracted for forwards that was down here was up there. Like there was nobody else left. So organizational depth, they just need to sign more guys. You need bodies, like
No doubt.
And when you're trotting out, I forget what it was when I think it was around January when we talked about it, Nick, like there was like 11 guys in their first year in the American League. Like you can't roll out that many rookies and expect to just thrive.
Well, a lot of people seem to think that because a lot of these younger prospects, they're high picks, right? Or some of them you had hoped that they could be the top 6 guys, not really to pick on someone like Carter Mazur. I think in the AHL, clearly a top 6 guy. Was he going to be in Detroit? No idea. But yeah, a lot of people seem to have these expectations that these guys were picked because they could essentially be the guys. So should fans be, I guess, worried that going into this playoffs, even adding someone like an ASP, MBN, they couldn't get the job done?
No, I mean, you're relying on 19-year-old kids. Like, what do you, like, come on. It's not like it's Connor McDavid coming in here to save the world. That was the first overall draft pick. Like, let's be real. It takes time for kids to develop, especially when you got 2 of them coming from overseas. And then you add Anton. He was a 4th round pick. So that's, again, like your odds of making it are so far. Even when you're picked 9th, you still have a long way to go. Like your odds of playing a couple hundred NHL games, it just continues to drop off the later you get picked. So you still have to find guys that maybe aren't deemed veterans yet, but can still provide at the American League level. Like, yeah, you want your kids to succeed. And most of them had good years as a whole down here. If you look at it, like, everybody wanted more from Nate. And it's like, okay, guys, he outperformed Marco's year last year, point-wise, in his first professional year. And that was Marco's, like, 4th year playing pro games last year. So, like, let's not just, they need to be better, blah, blah. Well, yeah, they do, but they have to develop, and it takes time. It's not just going to come in here and blow the doors down. If they did that, they'd be in Detroit. That's why they're down here. That's why Elmer was down here. That's why Marco started down here. Like, you want guys to be ready to play. You don't want Edmonton Oilers from the 2010 era where you roll out 5-6 top 5 picks and they're still horrible. Like, is that
Yakupov? Yay.
Yeah.
Like, is that the recipe you want? Like, no, let these kids develop. Let them learn the league. Let them learn how it is to play in North America for some of them.
Yeah,
like,
and
We'll learn what North America is too. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Time
Like
change was a big
ASP
deal.
and NBA. Do you guys know if they're sticking around Michigan for the summer, or are they going back home?
They're going back home. Well, Nygård's already back in Norway. He's playing for the World. So
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
he
yeah.
literally jumped on a plane after
They got
and
home.
was on his way to Detroit to meet with
Yeah.
Steve and then on to Norway. So
Yeah.
I mean, he was gone. ASP is not sticking around from what I understand, from what we were able to ask. A lot of the guys are going back. But I mean, I think that's why you have dev camp. You have training camp. That time, they're here like a week or 2 before. getting adjusted to the time zones, the change, the jet lag, things like that. Like Anti was like, after like the first week, I think the first week that he was here, he was on the road. And when he came back, it was like, he's like, I'm still trying to get adjusted to the time changes here. Like I haven't been able to sleep. I haven't been able, it's been a weird transition for me. And a lot of these guys get here and they're in hotels. Like Finney was in a hotel for a week. So, I mean, it's just trying to get that adjustment that you have to do off the ice too, to be prepared on the ice.
Yeah, no doubt. What would you say your wish list items are for the Griffins? I mean, we can go into, and I'm sure we will get in depth on kind of the Red Wings wish list. I mean, boys, we've talked about it so much in the group chat about what we wish for Detroit, but I'm more curious, what do you guys wish for GR? And I'm going to give you a little bit of context with that question, because I almost wonder if, like you guys mentioned how after Todd came in and started plucking all the guys up to Detroit, GR really had nobody left. So I almost wonder, like, if that was a curveball. Was that something that was not anticipated by GR's brass, and then it happened, and then GR was kind of left with what they were left with? So that's kind of the context to frame up that question. And then understanding it now with Aljo, Marco, Elmer, they're all going to be on the Red Wings. What is now your wish list going into next season for GR, player personnel wise?
I kind of want to ask that in a different way too. So did the plan from the start of the season end up changing once Todd McClellan came in? Is that kind of the similar question that you're asking, Carlo, just in a different way? Did the overall plan change from the time that?
Well, I think it did. Like, I think that's pretty evident with all the guys. I'm just curious, like, with those guys gone and then being on the wings now, who are pretty prevalent guys, like, what does that mean now moving forward? Like, what is the wish list items now for GR with understanding those guys aren't coming back?
And here, I guess I wanted to paint this picture too, because this correlates with what Carlos said, because you look at their roster right now, and this is just assuming that you're not putting Carter Mazur with the Red Wings. They have 12 forwards technically right now. They have 4 defensemen, 2 goalies signed up right now. So, I mean, they only have, what is that? That's 5 players that they need for a 23-man roster going into next season. So yeah, what does that look like, to Carlos' point, to you guys? What would you guys want for next season? And then how is that correlating with the Wings now?
Trav, go ahead.
You need more depth. Like I said earlier, like, you need more guys on American League contracts. As many, like, I know there's a veteran limit that you can dress, but like the way Wada used to do it down here is you'd get as many guys close to it, because I don't know how it works in the American League, but like for us down here, if you hit your 250 in the middle of the season, you didn't count. Like, you had to start the season as a veteran. So like, with there being a veteran limit again in the American League, it's kind of like, you got to find those deals. Like I pointed out to Nick and Brandon at one point, like, was it Nick? Who's the guy from Cleveland that I brought up? Do you remember? Grimaldi? Was it Grimaldi?
Grimaldi, Rocco Grimaldi, and then Trey Fix-Wolanski.
Like, those type of guys. You need, like, Rocco, he would have been a guy for the Griffins that they could have benefited from having. Like, guys like that on American League deals where they have experience, they can lean on these kids, plus you're getting experience from the NHL. And then that gives you, like, when you sign all these kids out of college to American League deals, you can start them down here. They can be playing meaningful minutes every single night. You got guys in the American League playing meaningful minutes, and it eliminates having 11 rookies in the lineup at points every night in the American League. You just need more organizational depth, and the Griffins need to sign more guys. Now, I get that it's a business and you can only afford so much, but you got to be strategic on how you can do it. That's my biggest thing that I noticed this year is they got to get more guys in and not hope to rely on Detroit, because you're going to lose guys throughout the year to call-ups, and you can't let your roster go so depleted that it hurts you for a longer stretch. Like, you can't do that. And when you're doing it with young kids, it's not a recipe for success. I don't care if you have 10, 15 first-round picks. They're still kids. Like, you need more experience, you need more depth.
So based on what I said about the forward group, right? I mean, it looks like Grand Rapids, if they don't decide to bring up Carter Mazur, it's 11 to 12 forwards that they currently have 2 contracts that could play in Grand Rapids next season, right? So what is then the move? Do you add more vets to that team and try to call up some kids? Or do you just kind of say, let's run it back with some added vets on this team? What would be the route that you guys would like to see them go?
Well, most of them are all Red Wing contracts anyways for the forward group. Like
Yeah.
like Banel and Seager were the only 2 forwards, if I'm not mistaken, and Johannes. So there's 3 guys. Everybody else is a Red Wings contracted forward. So it's just one of them things.
Yes, but which ones are, in your opinion, I don't want to jump ahead too much here, Zach, so pause me if I am, but
No, go ahead and correlate it. You probably want to try and correlate it to the Wings team next season, right?
yeah, like what players that are under Red Wings contracts now do you see getting called up, whether it be for them breaking down the door, whether it be for an injury, and then let's say that does happen, is GR going to be depleted again? You know what I mean?
Because
Like, how do we avoid that?
Yeah, because to your point, Travis, you're saying, they need more depth, right? So what does that depth look like? Is that bottom 6? Is that bottom pair? What does that look like? Because if you go on and get that vet that can play in the top 6, then you're kind of taking away from players like maybe Nate Danielson, Amadeus Lombardi, maybe even MBN, so to say, right? So do we finally start to see that shift where Detroit is almost kind of going into that Buffalo territory where they want to have a bunch of young guys on the team, but not quite as severe as Buffalo does it?
I think it's just more of like you need guys on American League contracts that can play up and down your lineup. Like you're going to rely on your prospects to play meaningful minutes, but you also need to sign guys that can play up and down in any situation. Like that's the biggest thing. Like, and you have to have 4 or 5 of those type of guys, in my opinion. Now, after watching this for a year,
Yeah,
Nick's going to have more insight on it than I am.
He's etching over there. I can tell. He's got his finger up and everything.
Yeah. And so I think the biggest problem that Trav sees is on this is like Toledo has a lot of guys. And what has happened in Toledo is like Matt Anderson, for example, he brought up is like he got signed to Toronto, the Marlies. He went up, he was away. Lewandowski, where did he go this season, Trav?
He was with Milwaukee this year. He's been with Cleveland in the past.
Who else has got called up to the AHL?
Bliss was with the Griffins for a game and Chicago for a game. Why have those guys leave the organization that they're playing in? Like, in my opinion, if you're going to call these guys up or if you're going to let these guys go on PTOs, like just have the Griffins sign them, like your Lewandowskis, your Blisses, your Andersons. That's additional depth that can play in the American League and not look lost. Like,
and it doesn't always correlate either to is like you said earlier, like the Carolina organization with the Stingrays, they won the President's Trophy for the league and they got outs the first round.
Yeah, it doesn't always work.
Doesn't always, but it does help because like in that situation of this year, we only had 11 forwards to go.
yeah,
Right.
And we had like 10 defensemen. So to circle back to your question of like, what do we need? Where are we going? Who's going to get moved up? Because that's what most people are tuning in to listen and know like, hey, what are we missing here? Who do we need to keep an eye on instead of, hey, he's a big name, he should be here next year? Because I see a lot of that with the Red Wings community. And I love the fans. Don't get me wrong, but it's like you got to watch some of these games to kind of know like, oh yeah, this guy is not ready to go up. This guy is nowhere close and he needs more time. I mean, just like Edvinsson the year and a half ago, like we're like, hey, we're losing on the forward side. Gettinger is a veteran that's going to be, he's close to veteran status. He's an unrestricted free agent. Joe Snively, unrestricted free agent. I would like to see Snively back. He played really well in his first year here. That's a guy that's got experience. That's a guy that's got leadership experience. He played really well this year. This isn't a guy that you're going to probably see in Detroit, unless it's an odd situation where there's a lot of injuries. But that's a guy that I would like to have back. My assumption is that it's a long off season. There could be a lot of training. There could be a lot of improvement for a lot of these guys. You saw a huge improvement from Amadeus Lombardi over the summer. He had a huge season this year compared to his first year in the AHL. So, I mean, anybody can change. My opinion can change between now and training camp and first games. But I mean, I would like to see like maybe Nate have one more year back here in the AHL, maybe a call up around December, January. I think there's still a few things that he could work on, getting stronger, getting better. His IQ is off the charts. I think he played really well at the second half of the season where he kind of got used to the speed and the physicality of the league and how the system that Dan Watson wants to play, because it is more of a defensive style. I'd like to see Amadeus Lombardi go up to the Red Wings. I think he would have a chance maybe on the wing. Travis has been pitching it to me all season, and I'll finally cave on that end. You could see him up there on the wing. I think he needs to work a little bit more defensively. This year, I feel like there was a lot called on him for this year of offensively because the team was ravaged with injuries. So guys I'd like to see that are already in the system to bring over would be Booch, obviously from Russia. Get this guy over here, let him like with MBN. I mean, I think that would be pretty sick. If we can get the Dower and Nilsson twin like brothers over here, that would be good. Like we need some wingers, we need some forwards. I think this group this year was young. I think they got 1 year under their belt. I think they can now hold the positions that they're in. Where this year they're kind of playing above where they were supposed to. They're punching above the belt. I think now they kind of got an idea. They can kind of get some rhythm. They can kind of get their feet under them. I think this is a good season for like a starting point. We weren't that off from last season. I think the expectation was just higher based off of us going on a 21-point game win streak or 21-point streak. We ended the season really well, very hopeful, started the season really well, and then we ended this season really bad. Like that calendar year was good. This calendar year start was bad. I think we add some of like, and we'll have also Red Savage being added to. If his did request for another year of eligibility, I don't think it'll get approved. So we'll have him. He's in the system. He's a forward. He's a big body. I think that'll help us. I don't know. I haven't looked too much into the other guys of like who's in the system that are able to come up. Maybe you guys can talk on that. But I think it's more on the forward side. I think that's going to be our biggest thing of trying to add guys. Veterans always help too. Like, you know, Carson
for sure.
I'd like to see him up. Trent Bliss, I'd like to see him up here again. I mean, that guy played in the A for a long time. Like, not a long time, but he played in the A. He had a considerable amount of games, and I'd like to see him back up here.
Now, the two guys that I want to, and you brought up one of them, two guys that I think that actually could make it very tough at training camp to make the roster or not for the Detroit Red Wings. I agree with you with Amadeus Lombardi. I think that's a winger that you could put on there and actually provide some scoring depth for you, right? I think that he absolutely can do that, but you got to place him with players that can play a rough game, right? Because you don't want Ammo to go out there and get roughed up, right? So, and on top of that, I'll insert someone like Michael Brandsegg-Nygård, kind of jumping ahead to the Worlds. I mean, he's laying some pretty good hits out there and getting those 5-minute majors, right? So he definitely plays a more North American style game. I wouldn't expect him to put up too much points, but I do like the physicality that he brings and the get under the skin type of game that he brings. That's someone I could see added as well, but there's a lot that has to go into this offseason, right? There's going to be, I'm assuming that there's going to be trades. I think we have, and to your point as well, it's a very young team, and that's not to discredit these players, but you have to counter that with some vets on the team as well. And so I do see an opportunity where we see some trades. We could see some of these kids making the team out of camp or eventually down the line. And so that's where it kind of gets tricky. Carlo, I don't know who, just right out the gate, who do you foresee potentially making the Wings out training camp, or who would you like on your short list based on what we've seen so far?
Making the Wings? Nobody's off the table?
Just your own opinion. Yeah.
I like the idea of Ammo. I think, and I'm going to answer this question with the thought of Jonathan Berggren in mind, because I feel like Burgers doesn't, like, he's kind of stuck in this third line, this bottom six role, but he's playing with, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, he's playing with plugs, man. Like literal plug players that don't provide enough offensive contribution to the team. So the reason why I'm going to answer this question with Berggren in mind is, let's say Berggren comes back and he stays on that third line. I think he would be a little more unleashed if he had a guy with some offensive upside, such as Amadeus Lombardi, maybe MBN. I think MBN's a reach. Like I think he truly needs, him and ASP truly need time in GR. But Ammo, I really like the idea of anybody other than that. I'll put Danielson in that mix as well. But I'm with Nick in the thought that I think even he needs some time in GR still. And I think you nailed it in saying maybe a December, January call up for him. But I feel like if you're going to call up somebody, I think you got to parlay it with Berggren if he even comes back or is signed, because I feel like he is just, there's so much potential there that is not being unlocked. We need to find him somebody that can truly unlock his potential, whether that be veteran depth or a guy coming up from GR. That's my take on it.
They really just need to put him with Marco Kasper and then have Mazur with him too, because that's what unlocked him when he was down here in the AHL.
Boom.
Here's an idea.
And that's
Solution's
kind
there.
of what I wanted to go towards, is that I feel like for Berggren, it's either, you have to either accommodate him for the team with the Red Wings, or you have to accommodate him to another team, because currently the way that the Red Wings roster is looking right now, he ain't cracking into the top 6 by any means, based on the way it's looking and what we as fans, I mean, you, me, Carlo, Nick, Travis, Brandon, anyone that's watching and listening as well, they're all saying too, you need a Mitch Marner, you need a Gavrikov, you need an Ehlers, you need a X, Y, and Z type of player. So Berggren doesn't really have that opportunity, right? And so can you add more bottom 6 players to make it a little bit more better for someone like Berggren? Sure. Is that going to be the recipe for success? We won't know until Steve actually attempts that, right? But to me personally, I feel it, and it's very unfortunate, but Berggren has kind of become that lost player within the Detroit Red Wings system overall, to me personally. I mean, I think that he's a great player, but the opportunity to me currently is not there anymore for Jonathan Berggren. And it's very unfortunate. I don't know where I would put the blame, if there is blame to be put on that, if that's how Steve just matched the system and created this roster, or if that's kind of on Berggren not really figuring it out in a bottom 6 role, right? So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Is it something where we want to keep trying one more time, or is this kind of a do better somewhere else type of scenario with someone like Berggren?
I mean, I personally love Bergie. I want him to stay. He was one of my favorite players when he was down here with Grand Rapids. I think he's had a tough road. I mean, there was one season he was out for a good majority of it with the shoulder injury, and then he had to come back, and then he played a couple games up with Detroit, and then he got sent back, and then plays the full season down here, and now he's back up with Detroit. Not a great shakeout for him on the third line with Tarasenko, and then like that chemistry just wasn't there. I don't know how much of an anchor Tarasenko was to him. I wasn't able to watch a whole lot of the season for Detroit this year. So I think there's a lot of potential there. I think he can do it. I mean, he put up points here in the AHL. He was the leading scorer down here last year, not last season, but the season prior. It's tough. I hope he wants to come back. I think they can find a role for him. It's also tough too. Like, you're changing systems, you're changing coaches. Everything's different for him. But I hope that there's a way to get him going on that third line. And maybe it's like I said, put Marco there, put Mazer there, and watch the magic happen. And maybe that's the plan for next season. It's tough too, because like we have a whole offseason. There could be trades, there could be drafts, there could be signings, unsignings, and well, who knows what else. So I mean, you got to find a place for some of these players, because some of these guys are right on the edge to moving up. And it's okay if they don't move up this year, or they come in through half the season. There could be a trade later down the road. So
yeah. And Travis, I do want to hear your take on that too. But before you go, I do want to make mention. I mean, I look at someone like Joe Veleno, right? The same thing that I'm trying to correlate with, right? Joe Veleno kind of became that lost player within the system, right? Was being the 12th or the 13th forward sometimes. And then we traded him for Mrazek and Craig Smith. Now, that's kind of the last thing that I want to see happen with Berggren going into the season if we re-sign him. You look at players like Elmer Soderblom, you have Carter Mazer. We just touched on Ammo. So do we actually legitimately need a Jonathan Berggren when we have those 3 other players that we just named off? Can those 3 players do something similar, or if not more, than what Berggren has provided for us in the 2 seasons that we've had him?
I look at Ammo and I just see him and Berggren as the same player. Like, they're very similar. And Nick, you look like just baffled. Look at their production in the American League.
I think they play a different style of game, though.
Well, they do, but they're both a smaller forward that's skilled. Like, you look at the comps and you just look at their size and their skill, and I'd say it's very similar. Like, to me, if they don't get a big free agent, like, you say to yourself, okay, who's going to play with Larkin and Raymond? Okay. When did they thrive the most? Was with a guy like Marco Kasper, your guy that's kind of going the first on the forecheck, plays a little heavier than the other 2.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Carter Mazer does that pretty well. Like, I'm not saying he's a first line player,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying he could create a little bit of space that maybe the other 2 wouldn't.
Well, Travis, I think you could say that for majority of these lines, there really isn't that for checking first kind of guy, maybe outside of Michael Rasmussen currently on this team, right? Or unless you can pick apart someone else. But I agree with you overall on that statement.
I think there's a lot of guys that like in time could do what Marco did for Larkin and Raymond. But ultimately, like I think almost everybody's back in GR to start next year that was on the playoff roster. They didn't put Marco on the team to start the year this year in Detroit. You really think all them guys are going to make, a couple of them could make the jump? Sure. Could they? Yes. Is it best for their development? Probably not.
Yeah, it depends where they're going to be in the lineup too, right?
Like
I don't think you're going to put a guy like Ammo or even Mazer on the top line to drive that line.
No. And I'm just saying like that'd be, again, it's like a plug and play. Like you're plugging a guy there for short-term success. Like till one of these guys truly develops into a top 6 winger, they're still going to be looking for that. Mm-hmm. That's not a shot at anybody. It's just a reality. It takes time. Like I just think like there's a spot for Berggren. He played well, like in the last 3-4 games he was playing on the top line, and he played pretty well with them.
He had a point every game, I think, if not 2.
Yeah, and a lot of guys could probably do that. It's just a matter of like how many Berggrens do you want?
Right, correct.
You have
how many burgers do you want?
Like you have so many, you have so many prospects that could come in and do the exact same thing that he did, but have maybe a higher ceiling than what Berggren does.
And the thing to remember is Bergie was not a Steve Yzerman draft pick.
Correct. Always had injuries as well.
Yeah, and so it's one thing like Steve's planning his plan, right? And then you've got still one guy that's kind of out there, right? That's
kind of a misfit.
I mean, I think that the time, if there was to be traded, was 2 years ago when he was here in the A, but they ran it back, and now you're with this piece, with or without this piece. I mean, you get to choose this year, I believe, right?
I mean, I'm sure they'll tender him. They'd be kind of dumb not to at least give him a tender.
Yeah.
So
a chicken tender.
But I think Berggren could be a player that is packaged up in a deal to a team that actually could utilize him in a middle 6 or top 6 position, right? If you can try and go get someone like a veteran player on the back end, maybe for the third pair on the right side. If there's a team out there that needs a forward like that, a young forward that they can keep for a while, and then try to lose out on or move on from a cap that they don't want on a player that they necessarily don't need, that's fine too. But let's transition into the wants. That's what I want to call it, the wish list, so to say, for the Red Wings, right? So first and foremost, the Marners and the Gavrikoffs. Everyone say I that you want those players. No one else? Okay, sweet, guys.
Okay, can I say like I, but it's a lowercase I? Because I'm just going to say this, man. I'm starting to really want Sam Bennett, dude. Watching him play in the playoffs, I think we said it with Devellano a couple weeks ago. This guy comes to play in every single playoff game, and he doesn't miss a beat. Like, he's the type of guy you want on your team every single day if you are in the postseason. And I'm starting to veer to the Bennett train.
Yeah, he's definitely grown on me watching this playoff series. The only thing that still makes me nervous is that, I mean, they kind of utilize him more on the center position, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's where they do. I would love to have him on the top line, left wing, right? But the thing that scares me the most is that and I don't expect him to be a line driver, but a better version of Marco Kasper, that would be nice. Can those points actually go up in the regular season, right? And that comes down to because, well, yeah, he's doing good in the playoffs, but Carlo, you've said this to me a couple times. We haven't even made the playoffs. Is he going to be someone that can help us in the play or make it to the playoffs? And I know that's just one player. One player doesn't do it all.
So let's kind of correlate this back to the conversation we had about who can plug into that top line with Larkin and Raymond and be that nose to the ground forechecker.
I think that's better.
And dude, if Bennett goes on the top line with Larkin and Raymond, he's going to be getting, barring injuries, he's going to get points. If Berggren can go up there and get whatever he got, I know he was contributing point-wise in every single game. Imagine a guy like Bennett. Now you have a guy that's actually kind of not only going to be first one to the puck, hopefully, knock on wood, his legs keep up with him this summer, but he's also going to be enforcing quite a bit and kind of dictating that identity piece that we all feel, well, at least Zach and I feel that the Wings lack. So I'm looking for a box checker here, and I feel like Bennett checks more boxes. Like, I don't think Marner's bringing in any identity to the Wings.
I'm not looking at this playoff series.
So I'm not only looking at skill, talent, points, production, But I'm also looking at a little bit of the gritty stuff too to kind of check that identity box off. And that's the reason why personally I'm leaning towards that Bennett train, because I just feel like you could plug a guy like that on the top line. Or does it mean Marco Kasper's back to the top line and Bennett's centering the second line?
Yeah,
Like,
because we can't see Andrew Kopp or JT Compher there back at the second center line, right?
I hope not, man. Like, we don't have time. Like, I just feel like these guys got to go here. We can't just keep running things back that are not working. It's crazy. Yeah, please, boys, top up.
Yeah.
Travis is a known Florida Panthers fan, so his expertise will be needed here.
Beautiful.
I'll tap out.
I don't hate it, like the Sam Bennett thing. Guys, if there's a 100-point player on the market, you go sign a 100-point player.
I know.
100%. But
Okay.
Travis,
You can find the sandpaper elsewhere. Like, guys, those type of players don't hit the market. I think you have to capitalize on that. Like, for me, I wouldn't sign Gavrikov because I think he's going to get a payday that's like, you're going to, like, if they sign, like, say the Kings sign him to an 8-year deal.
Kenny Holland.
You're not going to love that deal in years 6, 7, 8. Like,
No, not at his age.
And Sam Bennett is a prime candidate for a guy that's having a career year at 28 years old and may never hit 50 points again. Like, it's just, I think you have myself. I can tell you what I would rather see them do. I'd rather them see and now this is, I say it to you guys in our group chat all the time. You can't just plug guys into lineups. They have to become available. If these guys hit the market, I'd rather see them go get Marner and Marchand.
Yeah, I actually would concur with you on that.
Plug Marchand into the bottom 6. Plug Marner into the top 6. You leave Marco in your second line center. You then have Marchand playing with and potentially like
Berggren?
Sure, but like Rasmussen.
Soda?
Like, or Soderblom. Like,
well, and that's kind of like where I was getting at earlier, Travis, because if you go after someone like Marner, I mean, if it's anywhere from the 12.5 to 14, just speaking of a range, right, you're only left with so much cap, and eventually you would have to then bring up some of these younger players like an Ammo, a Nate Danielson, or a Carter Mazer, because you're throwing so much cash to one player. You could buy out, you could trade. I mean, those are all options. But then if you're doing that as well, then that's more roster spots that you have to fill in return. And so that goes back to the free agency, like how Travis is saying. It's like, do you really want to do this? And we've seen it with Stephen Weiss, JT Compher, Andrew Kopp, Ben Sherratt. We see these free agent signings. And so that's, I think a lot of Red Wings fans, obviously you want to go after a Marner, you want to go after the big names, but I think a lot of Red Wings fans, they're not showcasing it online because I think they have the heyday fever going into free agency this year because there's some really good names out there. But that's what freaks me out the most, is that I don't want to be in a situation where we do JT Compher or Stephen Weiss all over again, where they can't even crack 50 points. So,
yeah, and over-indexing. You don't want to sign guys that we're just going to continue to over-index, because that we've been doing that for quite some time here, and it's Kenny Holland was even doing it. So it's been literally quite some time with the over-indexing. But Trav, quick question for you, just topping up. You say you go after a guy like Marner, you go after a guy like Marchand. What are you doing on D? Are you staying status quo on D? Or are you making any adjustments there?
I think their defense is going to come from within.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, okay, so if you think about this in a couple of years, you're going to have half of your D core set just in alone, Seider, Edvinsson, Pellikka. That's 3 guys that you've drafted and developed that most likely will get considerable games in the NHL. I've already seen 2 of them.
Aljo.
Okay. Third pair. Okay. Yeah. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a good point though, because now you really, what do you need to go and get? 2 guys?
I mean, if not a top defenseman becomes available, I think you are better off to trade for that. I think that would maybe be a trade more than free agency. Myself, you could look at a guy like you could look at Orlov in free agency if he becomes available. Like,
Carlo doesn't like that I brought up Orlov once. He doesn't like the age of him currently, but I was like, hey, I mean, if that's a guy who's willing to sign a 2 or 3 year deal, if you have to overpay a little bit, that defense that he brings, man.
Don't make it seem like I don't like Orlov. I do.
I didn't say that. No.
Okay. It's just his age freaks me out. And if you're going to sign a 2 or 3 year deal, why wouldn't you stay in Carolina when they got the cash to do it? And they're obviously on a trajectory right now. They're in a window. That's my thought on it.
No, it's not bad. I just think that their defense will come from within. Like Anton's a guy, he could be a 5'6" type of defenseman in time, not next year, probably. You're talking down the road.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be a bubble team next year again. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. And if they miss, people are going to freak out. And it's still like, and they're going to want Yzerman canned. And I don't understand why. I mean, I get it.
Because his last name's Yzerman, Travis. That's why.
Well, they haven't made the playoffs. Like, whatever. Like, this is how it works. It takes a long time to get your picks ready to play in the NHL and make impacts. Yeah, they could sign a defenseman. It wouldn't hurt them. It's a need, right? Like, they need a top. They need a top.
You're saying to go after a D-man via trade. Go and sign Marner and Marchand in free agency if you could have it your way. Which I honestly don't disagree with it.
I think you would have a much higher chance of success doing it that way. Like, guys, let's not forget, Sergachev got traded last year at the draft.
Yep.
You're telling me you wouldn't go out and get a Sergachev for this year if you had the option? Like,
yeah, no, you're bang on. I agree with that take 100%.
I just think there's opportunity to maybe find it through. You're going to have to figure out who's available. Because not everybody, like, it takes 2 guys to make a deal.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, if Marner hits free agency, I would sign him. Like I said earlier, those type of players don't hit free agency. Now, granted, he's played with some exceptional players, and you're probably going to overpay to get him. But you know what? That's what you're going to have to do. Like, you are going to eventually have to do it. The days
for a guy like Marner, though, I think you like the Wings, and I think the Wings fans are just sick and tired of overpaying for guys that are being over-indexed and can't hang. You go and get a guy like Marner, I don't think anyone's going to bat an eye at overpaying a guy like him. He's on the elite level of the players. I'm not going to call him an elite superstar. I don't think he's on the level of a McDavid or a McKinnon, but he's up there. Like, he is a scale or 2 notches below that type of tier. And I'd be honestly fine with overpaying for a guy like that who's going to be here for a while and actually make players around him better.
He's had better years than any Red Wing has had.
There you go. There you go.
It's just plain and simple. He's had higher point seasons. They need to score more goals. They need to not let in as many goals. Like, it's like Yzerman said, we need goalies to stop the puck.
Yeah.
We need to score more. Like,
pretty black and white.
When high-end talent comes available, you should absolutely do it. Like,
yeah. And I don't think anyone here is saying that you shouldn't go and attempt to do it, but it comes down to how much more intriguing are you to a Martyr than the 31 other teams, especially a Toronto team that he's very, very familiar with. That's his home country right there in Canada, right? So those things come into play into it, and he just had a kid too. How bad does he want his kid to grow up in Toronto? I don't know. Carlo, you could probably speak on that better than anyone here. How nice is it to raise a kid in Toronto? Because here in Michigan, it's pretty nice, apparently, to people like Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane.
Yeah, I almost wonder, going to go a little off topic here, but I almost wonder if seeing, Kaner, Brinkett raising their youngins here plays a role in any of these other UFAs when they want to come here. I'm sure these guys talk, right? To answer your question, though, Zach, like Toronto, listen, I try to avoid Toronto. I'm not a big Toronto, huge, big city guy personally. But I mean, there's a lot of, they call it the GTA, right? So there's a lot of different cities and townships around Toronto, the greater Toronto area. It's huge. And there are some nice spots. Like, there are a lot of nice spots. And I'm sure a guy like Marner, with the resources that he has, have found and nested into some very nice spots. But I mean, Michigan's unreal. Like, you guys know, like the summers in Michigan, like even the spring and the fall and the winter, like, come on, it's just beautiful. Big cities. No, it's not, man. You fuck 3.5 hours. You're back home.
Private jet. What is that?
Yeah, get on Chris Yelich's PJ. You'll be there in 35 minutes, Mitchie.
I still think he resigns.
Yeah, and
I think he resigns
in Toronto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, and then let's talk about your point, Travis. I know that you're really, well, I don't want to say it like this, but you always bring up the idea of doing the offer sheeting, right? Matthew Nyes. And I see the correlation here that we keep on coming back to. I mean, Travis, you brought up Marchand, we brought up Bennett, right? And so sounds like the overarching theme here is that the Red Wings need to get a little more gritty, but also with scoring, right? What can a Matthew Nyes do for a Detroit Red Wings team if we went out and offer sheeted him? Even just tried to trade him? Because to your point, let's say he re-signs with Toronto. They have decent cap, but can they afford to re-sign a Marner, then keep a Matthew Nyes as well on top of that? So what would something like that look like for the Detroit Red Wings between you, Nick, and Travis?
I think Marner re-signs and they bridge Nyes. Like, I think that's probably what happens. But
I feel like they have to do that.
yeah, that's what I would do. I'd sign Marner long term and bridge Nyes, like kick the can down the road a couple of years. But he would replace what Kasper did. Like, and here's the thing too, like if they were to offer sheet him in particular, like you would have to, the way to do this, I know we talked about it and it didn't work out the way that they planned, but the theory is probably correct. When Carolina offer sheeted Kotkaniemi, the 1 year high and then extend at a lower rate is probably the best way to do it. Like, yeah, it's hard. Offer sheets are tough, but I would not rule out doing it. Like,
now let's talk about some of the other players that are potential offer sheeted players, right? And I look at a team like Buffalo. I mean, not even just in the offer sheets, but also in the trade category. I mean, they have a lot of young players on that team. Just speaking on some, Bowen Byram, JJ Peterka, right? And that's someone that I mean, that's a guy who had a very sneaky good season to me, and he's a very young guy. I mean, you even look at a team like the Edmonton Oilers. I don't foresee them allowing an Evan Bouchard to walk away, but that's another player for a team that has very minimal cap. So the Red Wings should definitely be paying attention to these teams that are really locked in on cap, but also they have a lot of players that they have to sign with some cap, right? Like the Buffalo Sabres. They do have a lot, but are they really going to extend all these young players that they have as well? So do you guys see any other players that you would go out and target in terms of being on other teams? Is that a direction that the Rings want to go to, is acquiring younger players from other teams and inserting them into this team? When is being younger actually something that we want to do? Is there someone outside that we need to bring in?
No on Bouchard, because you have Pelika in the waiting, in my opinion. They're virtually the same player, high offense.
Yeah.
Like,
fill the spot.
I think that would kind of hurt ASP long term potentially. I don't love that one. Byram, sure, bring him over. Like, we need a left-handed defenseman. Like,
would you say Byram is better than Wallander and what Bouillon could become? Because that would be the question that you have to ask yourself. Do I project this player to be better than Wallander and Bouillon?
I would take Byram over him myself.
I would say Byram's already played games in the NHL, so you already have an idea what to expect. Where
Byram was a high pick too.
Yeah, Wallander hasn't. He's been shaky this year, but he's also been playing top minutes. There's still a lot of potential. There's still, I don't know if that ceiling has been hit yet. So I mean, that you don't know, right? It's still so young in Bouillon's career. So, but I would still probably take Byram because he's played those games. We already know where he's at, His
biggest thing is health. Like, can he stay healthy? Like, he's dealt with some injuries. Here's a idea. 13 for Byram.
I wouldn't hate it.
As a starter.
I wouldn't hate that.
Like, as a starter, like, you need a left-handed defenseman. And what does that do? That puts Sherrod on your third pair.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like,
so I guess
it does a lot more than just bringing in Byram. It does a lot more to level set your actual construction too.
Now let's ask this question. Do we need more help on the left side than the right side? I think personally, clearly it's on the right side, but if you add someone like Byram and yes, push Sherrod down to the third pair, I think overall that just helps the defense overall. Even if you still had the Halls and the Gustafsons, I still think we should buy out Hall because should have done that last year, but
just eat it for one more year. You only have one more year.
I can't. I just keep seeing Cole Caulfield bully him in front of the net. I cannot
Okay,
I
then
can't
waive
take
him and
another
send him
year
to
off.
GR. Like,
Yeah,
waive
okay,
him,
fair.
waive him and send him to GR. Like,
No
He
problem.
was supposed
They-
to be in GR at the start of the year, if you guys remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Gus can play the right side for 1 year. Like, they're going to have to sign probably somebody to play the right side.
Correct.
I mean, you could even re-sign Petrie and play him third pair, and that wouldn't kill you for one season. Like, it's 1 year.
Yeah, it's $750K. Whatever.
Yeah, as
amount.
long as they're not doing things that they are incapable of doing. That's my biggest gripe is when you over-index players that have no business being in the role or position that they're in. So if you're signing Petrie to play him on the third pairing right side for 1 year, to your point, sure.
It's going to be interesting. And I don't know. Like, I would not rule out offer sheeting somebody. Just, yes, you're giving up a lot, but like, okay, do you want to trade all these prospects for them? Like, yeah, you're going to make picks later. It's time to, I think the NHL is starting to realize, and last year with St. Louis, they did it so well that, like, okay, what are the odds that a second and a third round pick play so many games in the NHL, let alone produce what those two did for St. Louis this year? Like, why not? Like, the Detroit has so many prospects already.
Mm-hmm.
What's the hurt if you try it? Like, okay, maybe they give up a first and a third on an offer sheet. They took a swing. Like,
yeah, I guess for me, Travis, and sorry to cut you off here, I guess for me, it comes down to which of that first are you using? Because I do see people, they include the 26th first round pick. And I get it that the expectation, and we all hope that the Red Wings make the playoffs next year. And that first pick becomes anywhere from 16 to
6
to whatever, right? I mean, if you make the playoffs, but let's say
Yeah.
you're still not getting you're not getting McKenna. So at that point, they're not going to be bad enough to where if they miss the playoffs, they could go up to 1.
Here's my take, though, is that the understanding is that next year's draft is that much better. I mean, I would say it's more comparable to the 2023 draft, and this is more, quote unquote, a weaker draft. I mean, once you get out of that 10 range, that kind of drops off from there in terms of the talent level. So I see a lot of people including that 26 first round pick. If they do offer sheet or make a trade, I personally would not like to do that. And I would be more inclined to move the 13th overall pick, personally, to me.
This year, yeah.
This year, 2025, yeah. Only because I feel like if you're picking from 16 to 25, personally, to me, it's going to be as comparable as it is to picking number 13 in this year's draft. So I hear you on that, but I would much rather insert the 2025 first. And then we have an extra, I think, a third or a fourth this year. I'd much rather make it this year's draft picks, next year's, or even 2027.
Yeah, at that point, you're looking at a trade. Now, like, and that's fine. Like, you have all these assets to use them. And I get the point about the 2026 draft. Like, they were talking about this on another show I listened to, and it's like, yeah, teams might be scared to offer sheet because that pick could turn into, was it Gavin McKenna? So, like, but like with Detroit, if I don't see them finishing 10th or worse.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're in this murky zone right now, right? Where
if you have an option to go get a good player, just
trade the pick and get it.
Yeah, or just go get the good player.
All right, boys, we're going to get going to wrap it up here. So let's finish off with some world championships. And it's going to be pretty light. I mean, let's just talk about some of the Red Wings players. I guess the main ones, right? You got Lucas Raymond here. Just looking at it from a forward perspective, he ranks 9th in this tournament in 6 games, 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. He's a plus minus of a +8. So he's looking pretty good defensively out there whenever he's out there. And then looking at someone like Marco Kasper, 28th in terms of forwards at the age of 21. 5 games played, 4 goals, 1 assist for 5 points. I mean, he's having one hell of a tournament right now for the World Championships. And even going over to defense, you have Moritz Seider, 5 games, 1 assist. It looks like he is a plus minus of a +3. Then you have Simon Edvinsson as well for Sweden, 6 games played, 1 assist, and he is a plus. There's also Eric Gustafsson playing. I think there's one more player playing as well. I could be wrong. That might be all of them, but Michael Brandsegg-Nygård,
the most penalized player in this tournament. Gotta love that.
Yeah. Yeah, but talking about the young guys, I guess let's just touch on them, right? Lucas Raymond, he looks really freaking good out there with Team Sweden, right? And he's got a letter. Simon Edvinsson, another young guy that's really trying to get his footing in. It seems like he's having one hell of a camp too, or for the tournament, right? I mean, that plus minus is no joke right there. Marco Kasper. Oh my God. I brought up Michael Brandsegg-Nygård earlier, and that's someone who has showcasing the type of North America play that he brings, right? And Marco Kasper, same thing. That is a guy who is just ripping the puck and just doing all the little things right, getting underneath the players' skins. And these players, Steve must have told them, go play in this tournament as if this is your playoffs, right? And a lot of players are doing that right now. I mean, even someone like Nathan McKinnon, he's got 10 points in 5 games. Pasternak, same thing, 10 points in 5 games. So for these young players going up against some of this lethal top NHL talent as well, I mean, you have to play it like it's a playoff series for you and your team, right? So touch on some of these players. Who are you guys liking? Who you're not liking? Do we by chance see an MBN potentially making a case with this that, hey, going into training camp, this is what I'm going to do and force my way onto the team?
I mean, on my end, I'm loving the aspect of MBN, just out there, just ripping the shots. Carlo, you touched on it. The penalty minutes are high. So you see the feistiness of it. Hopefully he's not causing that many penalties down here in Grand Rapids next year if this is where he starts. So I'm excited that he's still continuing playing. He's played a lot of hockey this year. I mean, he started with Skellefteå and then Grand Rapids and then playoffs with Skellefteå as well, and then Grand Rapids playoffs, and now Norway. Like, you just can't keep this guy off the ice. So I'm excited that he's continuing through. He's still playing. He's still putting up points. I mean, that makes me the most excited. And then on your end is like Marco Kasper. You know, he's just continuing where he left off and continuing the development. I think that's a name that is kind of being put out there a lot more now. Like, a lot more focus is on, as Marco is like, dang, now he's did well last year from January on, and now you're seeing him in the Worlds doing the same thing with different teammates, different team, like different competition. So I think those are kind of my two standouts on that.
Yeah, and especially, just re-emphasizing on a Marco Kasper, Team Austria, right? So not a lot of NHL caliber talent, or at least elite talent, right? And so looking at him being a point per game player in a tournament like this, that makes a lot of Red Wings fans giddy about it, right? For next season, what can he bring to this team next season? If he can help drive a Team Austria, what can he translate that to the second line? Absolutely. At this point, I do believe that. And it seems like with all of you shaking your head as well, you guys would agree with that as well, that he could be that player. It's almost like a Lucas Raymond, but at the center position, right? Not saying that Lucas Raymond is a main line driver on the first line, but to even talk on that with Lucas Raymond, I mean, you look at some of the players that they have for Team Sweden on the forward end. You got Elias Lindholm, who's got 10 points in 6 games. You have someone like Leo Carlson, Michael Backlund, Mika Zibanejad, right? And so that goes back to kind of even what we were talking about, that if we can go out and get someone like a Mitch Marner caliber or someone around there that might be a little bit better for the top line, Lucas Raymond can have a pop-off season a little bit more than just the 30 goals and then 80-point season, right? And so there's a lot of things that we have to look at, I believe personally, looking at this World Championship. And I hope that Steve Yzerman and Tom McClellan are looking at and realizing that, okay, we see them playing with some of these players that we might not have. How can we try and get some of these players via free agency or trade to help these players that we have currently now, like a Raymond and Marco Kasper? Anyone, give me life.
I think the big thing is like the guys that you expect to play well are playing well. Raymond, Edvinsson, Seider, those type of guys. And the younger guys are starting to make an impact where they need to, and just further develop the confidence that they have in themselves with like MBN and especially Marco. Like, he had a huge second half, and it's just translating into even stronger play at the Worlds. Some teams are definitely a lot better than others at the end of the day over there in that tournament, but you still have to, you can only play who you're playing against. And when you're playing well, it just gives you a confidence that it doesn't matter who you're playing, I can go out there and play well. So I think for him, that's huge. You look at, like, just as a whole, I think everybody that's over there is kind of doing what they need to do and going over there with the right mindset of like, this is basically your playoffs. That's a great attitude to go over there and have.
I think too, like with Marco, when he was here with Grand Rapids, like he was on a line with Mazer and Berge, and like Berge was the goal scorer there. So it's like, okay, how much is Marco really affecting Berge and Mazer when they were here? And then you put Marco up with the Red Wings, and who is his line mates up there?
It was usually Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Kane.
All four of those guys are superstars, right? Or on their way to being superstars, right? Or all-stars. So it's like, okay, how much is Marco really affecting these guys, or are these guys lifting him up? And now you see him on an Austrian team who has not great talent, and he's sticking out and he's making the play, he's driving the line, and now you can really see like, all right, this guy is doing, he's the guy.
Legit.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's legit. Like that's the aspect that I love about the Marco Kasper aspect of it, is just like you see him by himself, you see him driving the line, you see him like actually making that difference, and you can really tell like, hey, that's him. That's not, he's not being supported by these two other guys here. And Marco plays a different style than, you know, Berge and Mazer out, you know, when they were here. So it's just in Larkin as well. So it's just good to see that aspect of him like really performing on a big stage against top competition with no, I don't want to say no support, but just lesser support than what he's playing with here down in Detroit.
You're also
makes
muted,
sense.
Carlo. I think.
I was. Yeah. No, I was just saying. He doesn't have any NHL support where he's playing, and he's playing unreal, and he's, to Nick's point, garnering so much attention. So for me, that 2C spot in the NHL and the Detroit Red Wings is 100% Marco Kasper's.
And I want to bring back the focus to MBN, because that's another player on a team Norway, right? Not exactly the greatest team to have a bunch of NHL talent on there. And that's why I kind of look at him too. And I'm like, well, if he's doing this for Norway and playing such a physical game and getting under the skin quite like the way he is, that's kind of why I kind of look at him. I'm like, he's already got a big body. Like he's over 200 pounds already, you know, and that's something we keep on going back to this. The Red Wings need grit. And I think that that's kind of what Steve Yzerman wants the team to be. And going back to like even David Perron, I mean, I think that that was the biggest thing that this team missed. And we saw when David Perron was on this team, when he wasn't in the lineup, the Red Wings looked lost out there. And so if you can, and I'm not saying that MBN can be the David Perron, like the father figure or anything, but I think someone who could bring that forecheck and that heavy hitting mentality that this team truly needs. Because Carlo, we keep on talking about, what's the identity of this team? There isn't one.
Still being fostered, man.
They want to be big. We understand that. You look at the players that they've drafted: Moritz Seider, Simon Edmondson, Anton Johansson. We got some really big players on the back end and even on the forward end. So yeah, if we can insert him into this lineup, even if it's on the bottom six, I don't think that would be bad for him whatsoever. And I do think that there would be space and we could accommodate someone like MBN, because if he's doing that for Team Norway and the way that he performed in the playoffs for Grand Rapids, I mean, the top player for that team in the playoffs, so to say, points wise, and then even just the way he disrupted the other team, Texas too. Sky's the limit for this kid, honestly, and he's got a ripper shot too, right? And that's why I'm always hesitant to say that we could buy out or trade a Tarasenko, because I truly do believe that it's, I don't want to say carbon fiber copy, but I do believe that they are very, very similar players, just based on the way they are, their size, and just their overall game to me, personally to me. I mean, if you go back and look at clips of Tarasenko, the Russian machine never breaks for him too. I mean, that was a guy who would forecheck. That's a guy who could score, who could almost essentially do it all. MBN could be someone like that for this Detroit Red Wings team. Let me know if I'm going a little over the top on this guy.
I get big Mantha vibes from MB.
You think inconsistent, or?
I think he'll be better than Mantha, but like Mantha's got that shot. He's a big frame. He just kind of couldn't find a home. I think if MBN comes in, develops well, he's got that shot. He's got that frame. And again, if he's truly developed well, I think he's going to be a Anthony Mantha, but I think he'll be better. But that's the vibes I get from him.
Travis, Nick?
Trap.
Why do I always got to go first with you? Like, it's literally, our show's the same way. Like, trap. Like,
Trap.
Sometimes I just need a minute, man.
Yeah, me too.
We'll give you a minute. Collect your thoughts real quick.
No,
Right.
I don't know. I think his ceiling is like a second line winger. I don't think he's going to come in here and just tear the doors down and be a first line superstar.
Yeah.
Probably a
Wait
middle
a second.
six.
So wait a second. Mantha as like your floor, maybe a little bit higher than the floor. Johan Franzen as your ceiling. Is that what we're?
I just hear
thinking something?
inconsistency out of both
Yeah.
of those names. That's all I get, Carlo.
That's where I was heading there.
Well,
I'm
you
just
know,
comparing to Red Wing comps, so leave me alone.
I mean, if you want to say Franza and the way he's producing in the playoffs is kind of the way that Franza did the one year. He seems to play his best when the games mean the most. And that's definitely a guy that Detroit could benefit from having in the future. Again, like I still think that it's not next year, but we'll see. I think long term he's going to be a decent piece to have. And you never know, like, you just never know what these guys are going to develop into, right? Like somebody could just pop off and be this next great player, and they could be then, you know, just a third line guy. Yeah, like let's not forget, like Rasmussen, he was a 9th pick in the draft, I think, and he never hit his ceiling. So for what he was drafted to be, so it's like, again, it's just like takes time. Let these kids develop, but he's a good piece. He fits what Yzerman likes. 2-way player, plays physical, can shoot the puck. The identity is like slowly being built. Big bodies that can play on like the wings and defense, and even in goal with Kosa, like just big guys that can play.
Mm-hmm.
And then you sprinkle in your smaller skill guys. It's going to take some time.
I think the thing with MBN is, I remember last year sitting with you guys on the draft, and he was picked, and we're all like, not who we wanted, but it's a safe pick, right? And there was a lot of question marks with this guy, and then we started seeing the shots through the, well, I can't remember what tournament he had played, and he had like a couple goals against Japan, and
It was the
we're like,
Worlds.
the world.
Yeah.
So he's when
It
he
was
was
the
playing for
Worlds
the Worlds
last year. He popped off.
and then Sweden League, he's kind of on the 3rd, 4th line, and we're not really seeing the points, and we're like, okay, is this like really the guy that we're supposed to have? And then he gets here to GR, and he starts popping off in the playoffs, putting up goals, which hadn't happened in the first 2 games of the series, or
He did
they're
that
very
in the Swedish
limited
playoffs too, as well.
Yeah, and even in the in the SHL playoffs, he was popping off there too. So it's just like, now you see him. Now he's in Norway, and now he's like getting more comfortable. He's getting that shot. We're seeing it more. You're starting to feel a lot better about the player and who he is and where he can develop, because you just didn't see enough. You didn't see enough points, and the Swedish league runs a little differently. They kind of, those top picks, they kind of drop them down to the lineup a little bit more, where they're pushing more for wins than prospect development, right? Because they don't care about prospect development as much. So it's just, we feel better about MBN now. He's putting up the points. We're seeing the statistics. We're seeing the shot. His game will translate. His game does translate to the North American ice, and he's able to find that space while he was here. I'm in GR, so definitely exciting. Can he be a second line? Can he be a third? Who knows? I mean, Bergie did really well down here, and he's on the third line in Detroit, and he hasn't been able to get points. So we touched on that earlier. So it's just like, where will he be? Who knows? I'm hoping he's here. He gets another year in GR to be able to really develop, and we can see more of those statistical points and just that play a little bit more.
That's why I really hope they start starting with this off season, but going into even next off season, they start injecting some good skill and talent to play with the Bergerons, but also the MBNs when he's here, and the ASPs when he's here. So we don't get into another situation where we're over-indexing guys, and then you have another Bergeron in MBN who's not producing on the third line. Like, I feel like now's just, I keep saying this, but now really is the perfect time to start injecting a couple more guys that are a little more skilled, a little more talented, and truly can play the roles that you want them to play, to make not only obviously have a good successful year for themselves, but to make the guys around them, i.e. the Bergerons, the MBNs in a year from now, better and capable and, somewhat efficient when they're here.
The one thing I want to say too is, like, I really think, like, 2 years ago, we were 1 point away, right? We were an empty net goal away from making the playoffs. And I think that season we over delivered. We did. The team was not in a position to go to the playoffs. And then everybody was like, we're going to run it back. We're going to get better. We're going to be in there the next year. I think this year really was like, just like the Griffins, this was the baseline year. This is their starting point. We should never go back. We should only be moving forward. So I think a lot of, like, my like final message to the organization is like, this is where we're starting. We finally have bodies. We have the right people. Now we're being able to build. We have the foundation. The foundation is right here. and now we're going to be moving forward. And I kind of want to say that more on like when we're talking about draft and picks and things like that. This is where you start. We should never be moving back. We should never be like, we still need some bodies. We still need to fill the cabinet. We're not at the point where we can start trading away prospects and things to all-stars, but like, this is the starting point. This is where we build our season moving forward, I guess.
Did Nick just kick off our final thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, I was about to say, that's a great transition there, Nick. Let's start off with our final thoughts there. Nick started it off. Travis, you can go next, good buddy.
I think the biggest thing, like, if a big name becomes available, they should consider it because it would help them. And eventually you're going to have to spend. Like, there's just comes a point where you got to get better. And not all these prospects are going to make it to the league anyways. But within the same thing as well, like, I don't see that happening this year. I think the big thing would be like you maybe trade a draft pick and a mid prospect for a piece, try to get a big free agent if one's available. But like if you look at all these kids as a whole, up front especially, like Carter Mazur was the guy that got the call up. Sad he got hurt. Wouldn't rule him out for next year. Like I think he probably is the closest of the forward groups. Him and Ammo were probably the closest two right now, in my opinion.
I'd agree.
If they're both healthy and both have big camps, they could be the ones that maybe push. But I'll just double down. I think they give them all the Kasper treatment that they can, and they all start in GR. And then who you call up is based off injuries with the kids. Nick, why do you look so confused?
I would say I wouldn't say Kasper treatment. I would probably say like Edmondson or Elmer treatment of like halfway through the season with call-ups, unless there's injuries, and obviously something a bit sooner. But Marco got called up like the second game.
Yeah, I just think I think they could push for a spot, but maybe it just makes sense contract-wise that they do a specific way.
And roster space.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun summer. I can't wait for them to just do nothing and everybody just have a nuclear meltdown.
I'm just going to my take ever since the offseason pretty much started.
I'm just like going to be like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like,
I mean, it wouldn't be the most outrageous. Well, I mean, for the fan base, it would be the most outrageous thing, but it wouldn't be the most out of the world thing that we would see Steve Yzerman do, where he just expected, kind of a run it back, just fill in the gaps. And then if there's an injury, like you said, then yeah, you pull up these prospects, right? But I don't want to become Buffalo. That's my biggest nerve about that.
That's the thing with that. Like if you do nothing, stand pat, solely just to bank on your prospects, you're becoming Buffalo. And it's just, my final thoughts is this is a foundation and we need to inject some UFAs and we need to make a trade to get a piece, whether it's I love what Travis said is you make a trade to address your D holes, get a piece there via trade, and you go and sign a top line guy this UFA, granted one becomes available, and you go and sign a third line guy who can. That's my final thought. It's literally the perfect time to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. Those are going to be my final thoughts too, that I like the unrestricted free agency pool better for the forwards than I do for the defense. Outside of Gavrikov and Orlov and maybe even someone like Ceci, if you want to throw out Ceci there for like a fourth, fifth, or sixth option. I think that's a guy. Petrie could be the sixth or seventh. It really doesn't matter. But looking at the defense, yeah, I would say via trade would be the best route. Who? It could be anyone. It could be a boat. I don't know if anyone's seen that Family Guy episode, but
trade a boat.
It could be a boat.
Hey man, there's some nice boats out there.
There's some nice boats out there. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I think it's going to be, we just got to keep on waiting. I mean, I guess real quick, final question in my final thoughts. Are we surprised that Steve hasn't given anyone an entry-level contract, hasn't really done anything yet? No one's surprised by that?
Still hockey going on, man. Still a lot going on.
Okay. All right. Other than that, just got to keep waiting, staying patient, trying to come up with great content for y'all so you guys can keep enjoying this summer. Hope everyone's enjoying the golf and the greens. And yeah, those are the final thoughts. Let's go Red Wings. Let's go Grand Rapids. Let's go Toledo. Okay. That's all that we have for you guys today. And until next time, we'll see y'all on the next one. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Wow, that was the bye. Wow.
That was the bye.
Wow.
Love you.